Have you ever wondered what happens to your body in silence, behind closed doors, when no one is watching? Late at night, maybe when stress weighs heavy or loneliness creeps in, you find yourself reaching for comfort, not from a voice, not from a person, but from something simpler, something easier. Your own body, your own release, masturbation. A word often whispered with shame or laughed off in awkward jokes. But behind that word, behind the habit, sometimes daily, even multiple times a day, there lies a reality few talk about. A reality that, over time, might be quietly reshaping not only your emotional life, but your prostate. Maybe you're someone who tells yourself, it's natural. Everyone does it. It's safe. And yes, in many ways it is. But have you ever stopped and asked, what happens if it becomes too much? What happens when something done for release turns into something you can't stop, even when you want to? It often starts out harmless. A teenager exploring his body, a young man dealing with hormones. No judgment. It's part of growing up. But then college comes, then loneliness, and a long relationship ends. You stay up scrolling. Your days blur. Your stress builds. And masturbation becomes more than just a release. It becomes a routine, a way to escape, silent addiction in your body. It notices, especially your prostate, that walnut-sized gland, quietly doing its job behind the scenes. What you do every day, even in private, changes the pressure inside. It changes the blood flow, the tension, the fatigue. And that's the beginning. You may not feel it yet, but your prostate. It remembers every time you force it to work overtime. Have you ever woken up in the morning and felt a strange ache deep in your pelvis, a tightness you can't explain? Or maybe you've started noticing you need to pee more often, or that your flow is weaker than before. You might brush it off. I'm just tired. It's nothing. It's nothing. And sometimes that's something as chronic prostatitis. Inflammation, swelling, a dull, persistent pain. And for some men, it doesn't go away. I know this isn't something you hear in health class. No one warns you that daily pleasure could lead to years of discomfort. That too much of something that feels good can turn your own body into a source of distress. But this isn't just about the body. It's also about the mind. Because when you rely on masturbation every day, not for joy but for escape, something else starts breaking quietly inside. You stop connecting to your feelings, to other people, even to your own needs. The pleasure feels mechanical, numb, and your self-worth starts tying itself to how often you need that fix, and how empty you feel afterward. You may find yourself lying in bed, the screen still lit, the silence too loud, and you wonder, why do I feel so hollow? It didn't start that way. But here you are now. I'm not here to judge you. This isn't about shame. This is about truth. It's about looking in the mirror gently and asking, what is this habit doing to me, to my body, to my prostate, to my peace? There's a fine line between something healthy and something harmful. And when that line gets crossed, it's usually quiet, subtle, but over time, the signs grow louder. And if you've been wondering why you feel drained, not just emotionally, but physically, you're not alone. There's more to this story. More to the hidden cost of daily masturbation, the truth about your prostate health. It might shock you. Let's go deeper. He never thought it would get this far. Let's call him David. Just an ordinary man, late 30s, works from home. Has a calm voice, polite smile.
Ow.
No one would ever suspect anything was wrong.
Ow.
But each night, as the world quieted down, David would disappear into his own routine. It started as a stress reliever after long meetings. Then it became a habit after dinner. Eventually, he couldn't fall asleep without it. And over time, it wasn't once a day. It was twice. Sometimes 3. He didn't talk to anyone about it. Who would he tell? What he didn't realize. What most men don't realize is that the body has a limit. Even pleasure, when pushed too far, becomes pressure. And for David, the first sign was subtle. He noticed he had to pee more often. A light pressure in his lower abdomen that wouldn't go away. At first he brushed it off. Maybe he drank too much coffee. Maybe it was stress. But the discomfort grew. It wasn't pain, not exactly, just a dull, dragging sensation deep inside. Some days it burned slightly. Other days it was just tight, like something was clenching and refusing to let go. When he finally went to see a doctor, the word prostatitis entered his life. Chronic inflammation of the prostate, often unexplained. And one of the culprits, repeated frequent ejaculation. Without proper rest or recovery, the doctor asked questions David wasn't ready to answer. How often do you masturbate? Do you ever feel pain during or after? Any emotional stress tied to your habit? David froze. He wasn't ready to connect the dots. Not yet, but deep down he knew. The truth, your prostate isn't a machine. It's a delicate gland. That relies on balance. Hormonal, muscular, emotional. When you ejaculate daily, especially in a rushed or forced way, your body gets no chance to recover. The pelvic muscles stay tense. Blood flow is disrupted. The gland itself becomes irritated. And over time, this irritation becomes chronic. Not just discomfort, but fatigue, burning, a constant need to urinate. And for some men, even erectile dysfunction. Yes, the very thing you use to seek pleasure ends up stealing it. But the physical pain wasn't the only thing that haunted David. There was something else, something heavier. He realized he didn't feel connected anymore to his desires, to real intimacy, to joy. His habit had become his coping mechanism, his comfort zone, his silent prison. Each release was followed by a wave of guilt. It's not because it was wrong, but because it felt empty, and that emptiness slowly crept into every corner of his life. He stopped dating, stopped going out, stopped trying. He told himself he was just busy, just focused on work. But the truth was more painful. He had grown afraid of connection, afraid of being seen. Because behind his smile was a man who felt out of control. This isn't just David's story. It's the story of many men, maybe even you, who've fallen into the quiet trap of daily self-pleasure. Not out of joy, but out of habit. Not out of passion, but out of pain. The consequences aren't always immediate. They creep in. A weakened urine stream. A deep burning ache after climax. A disconnect between desire and satisfaction. Shame that grows louder with each repetition. And let's talk hormones. You've heard of testosterone, the king hormone of male energy, drive, confidence, daily ejaculation, especially. Without proper rest, can gradually reduce your baseline testosterone. Your motivation drops. Your mood shifts. Your body feels flat. That spark you used to feel, it's gone. And no one tells you why, but now you know. It's not just about the act. It's about the overuse. It's about what happens when you ignore the signals. When you push your body past what it was meant to carry, some men go years before they realize. Some never do. They live with chronic pain. They suffer in silence. They lose their sense of masculinity, not because they are less of a man, but because they've forgotten what true control feels like. And control real. It's quiet. Inner control is power. This is more than just a health issue. It's about reclaiming your strength, reconnecting with your body, and choosing to pause. Not because you have to, but because you want something deeper, something healthier, something lasting. David's story didn't end in pain. It ended with a choice. But before we get there, let's talk about healing. Let's talk about the first step back to balance. David didn't change overnight. Healing never happens like that. It began slowly, like waking up from a long, foggy sleep. There wasn't a single aha moment, no dramatic transformation. Just a quiet evening when he stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror and whispered to himself, "I don't want to feel this way anymore." That was it. Not shame, not anger, just honesty. He didn't throw away his phone. He didn't swear off pleasure. He simply started noticing. Noticing when he reached for it out of boredom. Noticing how his body felt afterward. Noticing the emptiness that always followed the rush. For the first time in years, he gave his body permission to rest. At first, it was hard. The habit had lived in his fingers, his muscle memory. But he learned something surprising. It wasn't really about the release. It was about loneliness. It's about the ache of being unseen, untouched, unheld. So, instead of reaching for a screen, David started reaching for other things. Walks at sunset, cold showers, journaling before bed, soft music playing in the dark. He didn't try to force change. He allowed it, and then came the harder part, forgiveness. You see, the weight he carried wasn't just physical, it was emotional, guilt, shame, the belief that something was wrong with him because he had lost control. But here's the truth. No one says out loud, "You are not broken, you are not dirty, you are not weak, you are human. You're allowed to lose your way. You're allowed to begin again." David started learning about his body, about the prostate, hormones, and the nervous system. He began eating foods that support male health: zinc, omega-3 south, anti-inflammatory herbs. He started exercising regularly, building testosterone naturally. And slowly, the pelvic pressure faded. The pain eased, more importantly. His confidence did. He no longer chased the momentary high of release. Instead, he found peace and control. In choosing not to act on impulse. In sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it, and that was power. He didn't become a different person, just became more himself, clearer, lighter, more grounded. And when love did return, real, warm human love, he was finally ready to receive it. Not from a place of desperation, but from stillness. Because he wasn't running anymore. He had stopped. And maybe tonight, someone watching this video is quietly nodding. Is feeling seen. Is feeling like David. Is feeling like you so. Let's talk honestly. Maybe you've been where he was. Maybe you still are. Maybe you've told yourself it's not a big deal, that you can stop any time. But deep down, it's not that simple. Maybe your body is already speaking to you. In aches, in fatigue, in a hollow feeling you can't explain. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop numbing and start feeling again. You don't have to quit cold turkey. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to pause long enough to ask, what am I really seeking? Because behind every craving is a need. Behind every repetition is a story. And behind every man who feels out of control is a boy who never learned how to sit with pain. But here's the good news. You can teach him now. You can love him now. You can meet yourself, not in judgment, but in grace. You don't have to carry this silently. You're not alone. The body remembers. Yes, but it also forgives. The prostate can heal. The heart can open. And the soul, the part of you that's been aching in silence, it can find its voice again. So take a breath. A long, slow, honest breath. And know this. You are not your habits. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are the space between the noise. The calm after the storm, the man rising from his own ashes. Start slow. Be gentle, but start. Because the strongest thing you'll ever do is learn to stop. We can't change the past, but we can choose what we do next. Act. And sometimes the bravest thing is simply to say, I'm ready to heal. If this message reached something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want more real, raw, honest conversations like this. And if you're on this journey, know that you're walking with others, even in the dark. Until next time, take care of your body and listen when it whispers.